You are on the AniCup channel. Today I will tell you a wonderful story from the anime from Hayao Miyazaki. Sit back and let's begin our story. The main character's name is Sophie. She lives in a very beautiful place. This place is like from a fairy tale. One day, when Sophie is making hats, she notices a huge walking castle from the window, which disappears into the fog. Later, the two soldiers start flirting with Sophie. They become very annoying. But suddenly an unknown guy comes and takes away Sophie from the soldiers. The guy says they are about to be attacked by shadows, after which they jump high into the air and land on the balcony of Sophie's bakery. When Sophie was making hats, a plump woman enters the room. Sophie says the store is closing, but the woman doesn't want to listen to her. The stranger turns out to be a witch and conjures Sophie to turn her into an old grandmother. Out of grief, Sophie is about to leave town. She sees that a war has begun, due to the fact that the prince has disappeared from the enemy country. Sophie makes her way towards the mountains, where she meets a scarecrow who will soon go with her grandmother. Seeking shelter, they jump into a walking castle. Sophie starts a conversation with Fire. The Fire says that the castle belongs to the wizard and that he will help her if she helps him. Soon a boy named Markle appears and starts a conversation with Sophie and Fire. When the guys were having lunch, the door suddenly opens and the same guy who saved Sophie comes in. His name is Howl. Firepaw says that Sophie is the cleaner. The castle came to the river. Howl, after fighting in his bird form, returns to the castle and sits, due to fatigue. Later, he decides to take a bath, but runs out screaming that Sophie mixed up her bathing potion and now he looks like a freak. But Sophie is offended by his cries and screams that she has also experienced a lot of things. After everyone has calmed down, Howl invites Sophie to stay when she wants to leave. Howl suggests that Sophie go to the palace and pretend to be his mother to tell the king that he is useless for fighting. On the way to the palace, Sophie meets the very witch who bewitched her. Here the grandmother learns that the witch can only conjure and not remove the spell. Sophie enters a large room full of vegetation and sees Madame Suleiman. Grandma starts talking about Howl will be useless in the war and that he shouldn't go there. At that moment, a witch was brought into the room, stripped of her magic and turned into an old woman. Suddenly Sophie declares that she understood why Howl does not want to come to Madame Suleiman. Because she wants to take his powers, just like she took the witch's powers. Suddenly Sophie becomes young, but unfortunately this is only for a while. Suddenly, the king arrives at the palace. Suleiman introduces Sophie to the king as Howl's mother. The king tells Suleiman that he will no longer use magic in the war, but at this time, the real king enters the room. As soon as he sees a copy of himself, he starts laughing, saying it's a good joke. As soon as the real king leaves, the other king turns into Howl. Howl tells Suleiman that he has fulfilled his promise and now he must leave. But Suleiman doesn't think so. She sends them to a strange place to show Howl's true nature. But after the fight with the shadows, they leave from there. Sophie asks Howl about why he sent her to the palace if he himself came there. Howl says he was afraid of Suleiman, but Sophie gave him confidence. Behind Sophie and Howl fly the royal troops. Howl gives Sophie a ring and says that he gave her 5 minutes of invisibility. This will be enough for her to fly away to the other side unnoticed. Sophie flies to the castle and crashes. All remain intact. Sophie wakes up at night as a young girl and notices footprints of Howl. She sees a tunnel and begins to slowly walk through it. At the end of the tunnel she meets Howl in the form of a bird and declares her love. But Howl flies away. Soon Howl appears in his normal form, after which he shows Sophie the room he has built. The room was the same as the one she had as a child. The next day the bombardment starts and the Howl starts to beat. Sophie sees Howl's ship falls and crashes. She asks the fire to help him, but the fire refuses. The tower is collapsing. Sophie gives her fire scythe, after which the fire gets stronger and goes to help Howl. The witch sees that the fire has a heart. Howl, she wants to take this heart away, but Sophie puts out the fire. After that, the castle is destroyed. Sophie sees Howl in monstrous form and kisses him. Then Howl takes Sophie and they fly away to the others. They see a small platform with legs. This is the rest of the whole castle. Howl falls to the platform in human form. Sophie persuades the witch to give the fire to her. Sophie returns Howl's heart, after which the castle finally collapses and slides down, but the scarecrow saves everyone by stopping the platform. In gratitude, Sophie kisses the effigy and he turns into the prince who disappeared earlier. In a few days, Howl is building a new castle for a new company.